So here we go. So I have been tracking this for a long time, probably since way back, I would say since the late 90s, plus or minus, which is the process of which it would take to move the United States currency system from what you and I grew up with to what generationally becomes the new currency system. As some of, or all of, I am a crypto fan and have been so for quite some time following this stuff. But more importantly, historically, my interest goes back all the way to when I was a youngling at Ernst & Young and Kenneth Leventhal, where in person, in real time, I actually saw the members of the ownership class of the firm committing frauds on behalf of customers in real time. And it led me down the road of believing that maybe the things that we are told are going on behind the scenes aren't necessarily what you and I have come to understand. That's an opinion. This is something I saw. This is a personal experience. Take that for what you will. But during the process when I was at that firm, I actually worked on directly the collateralized debt obligation packages that ultimately went on to fail during the 2008 crisis. Yes, you could blame me. However, the reality is that the process that was supporting the finance system of the country were being packaged up into banker boxes and sold into the likes of Goldman Sachs and other organizations to then be hypothecated into the financial system. And voila, you can watch a movie called The Big Short, summarizes exactly what the net result was. Point is, I thought during the 2008 crisis that this was actually going to be the event that caused the introduction to the new currency system. I wasn't too far off of that point with this one or a few points, which was crypto or Bitcoin started to become a thing. And it was becoming a thing more from the perspective of it's this creepy, dark mechanism for bad people to do bad things with. Therefore, nobody should look at it or touch it, which of course piqued my interest because when you have agencies like the FBI, NSA, and others telling you no, that means probably something's going on the back end. Again, I'm probably more right on this than wrong because where we're at now. On the screen in front of you, the president just executed this order, which conclusively says the banking system's currency system is about to change. And I'm being very clear about this. There's two currencies. There's one that the banking system uses, and there's one eventually that you and I will use. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Mr. Trump was or is now responsible for what becomes the digital wallet system, or what will support the digital wallet system in the United States, which will become the retail currency that we will use. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. So this is in place. It's already done. The next part is what you and I are going to be using, called stablecoins. Now, these stablecoins are, again, something that has been played with in the terminology of it for quite some time. Stable, right? We want to make sure that we feel very comfortable about the thing that we use as a currency. So it's stable. That's the way we branded it. And you're going to love this one. In the Genius Act that has been proposed of 2025, this is where we start to see what the new retail currency system is going to look like. What that means is the currency will no longer necessarily be a federally issued currency or Federal Reserve issued currency. Let me be more specific. But it's going to be a retail bank subscription that we'll be using. And that coin, the stable coin, will be authorized to be used by the Federal Reserve. It's super convoluted, but here it is, black and white. And then I'm going to send you the links to this as well. Suffice it to say, the stable coin is then made up of several components. Some of those components theoretically are the treasuries of the United States, which will continue on the back end. And as a part of the funding of the stable coin to make it stable, you have treasuries. Then you have things that might be a mix of other types of items. One of them most likely will be Bitcoin in some fractional part thereof. If you look at the Tether or other types of stable coins that are predominant in the marketplace, they are a combination of mostly the treasury, Bitcoin, and a couple of other components. And that's it. And that's why that they're pegged to $1. And that's what you and I will probably be using in the near future. The way that this rolls out, and I'm about 90% sure this is how it's going to be done, is some event will occur, and that event will then require all of us to download an app on our phone and then begin to use these stable coins. Now, that event may be on a catastrophic scale. Maybe it's not so catastrophic. Maybe it just becomes some type of an emergency situation that needs to facilitate the move from the normal banking system to the stablecoin system. What I mean by that is I don't think there's going to be banks as you and I know them today in the next 20 years. The reason why I say that is because in the legislation that's being proposed, and I've known this for a little while, is the players who are issuing the stable coins are going to be organizations like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. Oh, wait for it. X. Yeah, the X app, which is the everything app, will then also have the ability to track and trace you along with your stablecoin purchases and so on. But we're already there, but this just makes it a lot easier so that they can also then pile on your social credit score as well. So what ends up happening is now, just like they've done with speech, is they've corporatized the monetary system. What does that mean? If you violate terms of service as it relates to the usage of those stable coins, meaning, let's say I paid for an organization that I like that doesn't represent the outlook or the tenets of that organization, I may actually be debanked. That's a real thing. Look at the Canadian truckers. It happened to them and it was horrible. What we're looking at now is this transition that will occur. And by the corporatization of the currency, you now have censorship around the currency, just like we do around certain types of speech. When I communicate over these platforms, I'm communicating over multiple layers of terms and services where if I say something incorrect or against those corporate oligarchs, basically what ends up happening is I could be shut up, censored, or, hey, no, thank you. We don't want to use you anymore. Thank you for playing. This is where I think we're heading because we've seen a lot of that happen over the last 3 or 4 years, specifically around speech. Now, when it comes time for the currency, I think this is the next play. All right. So we'll see how it goes. I'm curious. And then lastly, just to support the point of where we're heading is the currency system will now be handed off into families. And I really do mean families. You're talking the Morgans, you're talking Trump now, where the Trump family has now invested in a vehicle like a stable coin. And also, I think 3 months ago, just completed the acquisition or purchase of a Bitcoin mining facility that actually produces on a regular basis. So I'd like you to consider that where we're heading into the very near term future begins to shift how our systems of currency are used. And by the way, I'm using the word currency very explicitly because this is not money. These are tokens. These are things that represent some type of a transaction, and that's all it does. Money, on the other hand, there's only really one or two sources of money ever in the world for the last several thousand years, and that's gold and silver.